So if you want to play with the legs, you've got to play Metronome Battle. As far as I know, this is one of the only modes that allows you to use the Pokestar models, as well as it lets you use Cap and just about everything else. And the reason for that is that the Metronome metagame is pretty made up all around. You know, you're allowed to have any ability, you're allowed to have any Pokemon, and they even let you hack in all the EVs, which is sort of cool. So because it's basically just a made up metagame, they allow you to use the Pokestar models. And so I'm going to avail myself of that and use the legs. Now, unfortunately, in Game 1, we have been taunted, which is not what we want to see. Metronome battles are very funny because there are certain moves that will more or less just end the game for you. Of course, the number one move that will do that is Explosion, or Self-Destruct, and I suppose Misty Explosion would count too, but mostly Explosion and Self-Destruct. So that's why you'll always see at least one Ghost type on your team. A lot of times people run Pecharunt, because then you don't even have to Terra and you're already a Ghost. And Pecharunt is one of the better Ghosts out there. You have a poison immunity, and you're quite bulky. Ooh, that's really nice. Boom Desire. I got rid of the taunt, so that actually works out for me. So now my right legs can finally get something going. Because when you're taunted, you can't go for Metronome, and so you're struggling yourself to death. A similar move to that is Imprison. Ouch. And Imprison basically ends the game. So if we ever do get imprisoned, I'll just forfeit the match right there. Because Imprison works on both of your guys, and so at that point, the only way you could possibly win the game is if your opponent self-destructs. Bullet Seed. And so there are a bunch of strategies you can employ. Like I said before, is this a speed tie? No, they're always winning this. Okay. So like I was saying, there are a bunch of strategies you can employ when playing this mode, since you're allowed to use any of the abilities, any items, anything really. And as we can see here, my opponent actually starts off with Mega Ampharos. So you don't even have to use Pokemon that are legal in any capacity with items. This Mega Ampharos will have its own item, for example, and that's just how this game is played. So one of the things you could do, oh, that's not good for my opponent. So one of the things you can do in this mode is just go for stats. And many of the Pokemon that have the best stats, like Arceus, are banned. So even though I just said you could use any Pokemon in this mode, that's not strictly true. There's actually an extensive ban list, things like Dragapult, Guillotine, woo! That'll help even if this one goes down. Although actually I'm sort of in trouble if we don't take out Mega Ampharos and my left boot goes down, because if that happens, oh thank goodness I got dive. Because the slowest one is the one that's going to die. So let's see if they take out my left. If they take out my left feet, then I lose the game. And they do, so I actually, they win the game, because right will go down first. So one of the things that you, when you load up this mode and you go to put in your Mons, you can just autofill the EVs, of course, like you usually do. And in this mode, they actually give you hasty EVs, or hasty nature, with the autofill. But I actually go against that, and I go with relaxed nature, the exact opposite, because I actually want to be slower, just in case of things like that, where Parashon goes off, or even Explosion, and I want to be the slowest thing on the field. But of course, you can't always be the slowest thing on the field, depending on your stats. And since the legs have base 100 across the board, usually you're not actually the slowest. Let's talk about some of the strategies now that I've got going on here. So I have two different legs, and when you run the same two Pokemon, you actually need to run with different names. Otherwise, the game gets super confused. So let's actually take a minute to look at what just happened here. So my opponent has a team that I've actually seen a few times on with different people. So I don't know why this is a thing that people do. But you run partner Pikachu, and you take. Oh, actually, this is starter Pikachu. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that's what this. Okay, that explains it. I thought it was partner Pikachu, but it's starter Pikachu. Okay, so starter Pikachu still gets the boost from the light ball, has better stats than normal Pikachu, and then what you do is you use Imposter, and you're allowed to do that because you can use any ability, and so you'll get whatever your opponent has as well. So if your opponent has some really cool abilities, you can just take that. If your opponent has some really cool items, well, then you don't necessarily get to use that. That is sort of the one problem. Although we did see here, I had Magician, and so we were stealing the light ball back and forth. And the light ball would still boost them when they're Metronome, when they are transformed. Of course, you don't have that much HP. I've also seen Blissies who's transformed, and that's the better option. Blissies are Chansey. I forget a Blissies band. The main problem with using this transform strategy is you have to win within 5 turns, because unless you have Leopard Berries, which these Pikachu do not, then you're going to struggle within 5 turns, and that's of course bad. So I don't really like this strategy. I like to go in with my own guys that I know are good and I'm going to like them. And I came back to this battle just real fast because I forgot to mention. So if you have left and right, the reason I have them nicknamed here is because if you don't nickname them, then the game gets really confused. So we saw this Pikachu, for example, it untransformed and swapped spots. It didn't actually do that. The game is just really confused because you had 2 of the Pokemon with the exact same name. And so when the one died, it got really confused as to what the heck was going on. And so if you want to avoid that, you actually have to nickname your guys. So just a little fun fact for you. Oh, for some reason I thought Dragapult was banned, but maybe it's not. All right. So going to strategies, I keep getting distracted by what's going on. You can run a bunch of different abilities. I like to run Good as Gold for what we just saw here. You know, I don't get Teeter Danced. I don't get Perish Songed. Things like String Shot or Bladder. You know, anything annoying I'm not going to get. Some people use Magic Bounce and then it bounces back to the opponent. But I prefer to just nullify it entirely, especially for things like that, where Perish Song, Teeter Dance is just everybody gets it. You can't Magic Bounce that. And it's better to just avoid it entirely. Now when it comes to stats and which Pokemon you're going to use, you can technically use anything you want, but I find that the legs are actually quite good at what they want to do. For example, this Mega Heracross is really scary because it's got the +1 attack boost from Intrepid Sword, plus it has Mega Heracross's fantastic, if not phenomenal, attack stat. But on the other hand, and I'm so glad I got that Topsy-Turvy off, that really hurts the Mega Heracross. But the problem is that if you don't get the proper physical attack, special attacks, then you're going to use Mega Heracross is not very good special attack stat, which is not useful. So the legs are great because they actually have a balanced 100 across the board. And so if you get a physical attack, you get a special attack, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. So that's why I like using the legs. That, and again, like we said at the beginning of this video, how many times do you actually get to use the legs? Not very often. Back to abilities, I only have one Good as Gold, as you may have noticed by now. The other one is Magician. So if my opponent gets something lucky, and I want to steal that from them, then I can use Mirror Herb. In this particular battle, that doesn't seem to be helping too much because of all these drops that my Mirror Herbed legs have gotten, but I would be actually at even lower attack stat if I hadn't had that. So I suppose we'll take it. And after I use up the Mirror Herb, then I'm free to use Magician to steal an item, which we've seen before, the light balls. Choice Band is another great item to steal, because since you're only clicking Metronome, you're locked into a move. You can also steal other people's mirror herbs, so maybe they got a boost, now you stole their boost, and then I steal their herb, they get another boost and you can steal it again. That kind of thing. Really nice. Oh, you want to know another sad move is when you get Axe Kick. I've gotten Axe Kick into Ghost type so many times. Well, it looks like they got something that knocks me out. Shadow Ball. Nice. So we've talked about Good as Gold. We've talked about Magician. We've talked about Magic Bounce. We've seen Transform. And we've seen a few others, like Intrepid Sword, where you try to get a boost right when you come into the game. Let's talk about a couple other abilities I've seen. One good one is Defiant. Man, I love Smokescreen. Good as Gold on my guys. Defiant is a pretty good one because you can get an attack boost or competitive every time you get dropped, so you allow your opponent to drop you. But man, that's a weird one. Okay, wait, so I got conversion to I changed to a steel type because they were a poison type first, and the steel is the best type that beats poison. Okay, interesting. So Defiant and competitive both just operate on this idea that I'm gonna get stat drops from something, I might as well actually get attack boosts. And that makes sense. This person's running a weakness policy, which I find to be not very smart, because that requires your opponent to pull one of the few types that's actually going to beat you. And there aren't actually that many types that Petron's weak to, like 4 maybe at most, so not the greatest chances of you getting that. I got the weakness policy there, probably not going to come into play. And then they go boom. That takes out my steel, but now it's just 1-1, so that's cool. Although it's not looking good for your boy. I did get glare, which is good, I suppose. Now, one other item you can run that's sort of useful is Lepa Berry. I briefly alluded to it earlier when talking about the transforming Pokemon that only have 5 PP. But even if you don't have 5 PP, sometimes these games run on a bit long if you get unlucky. And so Lepa Berry is also a good one to have. And we see here Shiny Petron, which of course you can't normally get, but in this mode we don't really care about that. So you can have it if you want. And I bring up the PP limitation because as we saw when I glared the opponent, now they have more chances to get paralyzed. If the game had gone on for a long time, then the paralyzed Pokemon is actually at an advantage because they'll burn up fewer PP and they'll be less likely to struggle to death. So Good as Gold, as you can see, is coming into play a lot here. I do think it's one of the best abilities. It's more of a passive ability and is not a useful ability if you pull a lot of attacking moves. But if your opponent is pulling a lot of status moves, it's really useful. Ouch. That's a Stab Force Palm. Nice Keyberry. Petron is actually quite good in this game, as I said before. It's got that ghost typing. And man, I'm glad a lot of things that I've been saying have been coming into effect. So we see Hydro Cannon from Mega Heracross. Does no type of damage to my guy. Well, that's not because it's particularly strong. It's just because Mega Heracross's attack is so weak. And so by using a Mega Heracross, you're now sort of just saying, hey, I want to bank on getting physical attacks. And what's great about Metronome battles is that it's... Oh, I hate Spite so much. Now I don't have any more PP. It's really, truly the most random kind of metagame. It's great to have when you're at work or you just don't want to have to think about Pokemon because you can just click buttons. You literally can only click buttons. There's only one thing you could possibly do, and that's click Metronome. I actually skip turns there, got Play Rough, and we take out the Heracross, which is cool. Ooh, Synthesis. Yeah, see, that's the kind of thing where you wish you had a Lepa Berry on you, because I'm down to only 4 Metronomes, The opponent has 7 Metronomes. But if I pull more stuff like that, where Scald actually did a decent amount of damage, then we'll take it. Of course, the digits lower my special attack and my attack stat. Draco Meteor. So that means I knocked them out. What did we do? What did we do? Earth Power. Oh, nice. And then they actually get knocked out by the burn. Cool. So we see here that my opponent's using a Blissey. I'm guessing this Blissey will have the Lepa Berry. So since I already used my Mirror Herb with the Iron Valiant's download, which download is actually a really smart thing to have. Ooh, that's good. I hope I actually steal from this Blissey. If I hit the Blissey right here, come on. Oh, Bright Powder, that's nasty. I forgot about Bright Powder. Yeah, Bright Powder is an okay item too, because then it just makes you have a 1.2 or 1.1 chance to just dodge a move. And on a tanky Pokemon like Blissey, that's even better. That's a double-edged sword right there. So we saw that the Blissey used Memento, but because I had good as gold, it didn't work. If it had worked, then I would have been -2 for both of my attack stats, but the Blissey would have been gone. So actually having good as gold there sort of hurt me, which is sort of funny. But the Blissey isn't really a threat, as I just pulled double Flash Cannon into that Iron Valiant. That's so funny. So this Blissey is down to 2 Metronomes left, and if they don't get me within a reasonable amount of time, then they're gonna lose. So at this point, it's basically over for my opponent. If I explode, then they will die. If they explode, then I will live. That's not gonna help them. And I just got minimized. And that's one of the fun parts about Metronome battles, besides the mindlessness of it. Dragon Hammer. You get to see so many moves that you don't normally see, which is pretty cool. As you see, they struggle there, and then they go down. So the Metronome tier really is just a weighted coin flip at the end of the day. Of course, your opponent has the same exact moves and the same chances as you do for anything. So really, when you play this, oh, that's so weird to see it go sideways for once. I guess that's what Dragon Chair looks like. Really, this metagame is all about just risk mitigation. Ooh, Sap Sipper is really cool on the Swampert. I actually saw a team that was double Mega Camera up with Heavy Rain, so that they didn't have that weakness. Or Intense Sun, rather, sorry. Intense Sun. Well, which was really cool. But this here is all about risk mitigation. It's about saying, okay, what bad things could happen to me and how do I avoid that? As you see there, I actually, even though I have good as gold, I also have a Lumberry just in case. It doesn't always come into play. In fact, it usually does not come into play, but it did just right there. And so I'm able to avoid the poison there because I have some risk mitigation. But I also respect totally having that Sap Sipper on the Pert. That totally makes sense, something like that. So you have no weaknesses, and Pert has a pretty decent BST, although my opponent would definitely be much better off if they had been using Mega Swampert. I don't think my opponent realizes that you're allowed to use Mega Pokemon independently. But if they were using Mega Swampert, they'd be much better off here. Ooh, Poison Fang. Actually get Toxic Poison to there. But hopefully this fly will hit, and we'll just knock out the Pert. So as I was saying, because this tier is just basically you and your opponent with the same exact access to the same moves and everything, it's all about just risk mitigation and trying to get the most out of a turn, or rather avoiding bad things happening to you while hopefully preventing good things from happening to your opponent. Now, you can't really prevent good things from happening to your opponent, but you can steal them from your opponent if they happen to them, which is why we have the Mirror Herb, right? If my opponent gets lucky and they get something good to happen to them, well, then it can happen to me too. And so that's the idea there. As we see now, I get the defense boost because my opponent got the defense boost. So they got a good thing happen to them. I will profit off of it. Here we got the Lumberry. Again, I don't know if that's the best thing, but that's what I am rocking. It won't necessarily help now because I've been Sand Tombed, and that's another one that's pretty bad to have happen. As you can see, my opponent here, what they're doing is they're rolling with two very bulky Pokemon with naturally good bulk. And while you might think that having a strong offense is preferred in Metronome battles, usually I find it's actually much better to have good defensive moves or a good defensive stat line. That way you can tank more hits. If you take more hits, then you can roll those dice more often, and hopefully something bad will happen to your opponent. Now my opponent's Mega Slowbro is poisoned, which is actually sort of a problem for him, and I'm glad of it, especially because I just got off that Phantom Force, which did no type of damage. But it is what it is. So at this point, what I need is I need to get a recovery move. That way I can avoid... Well, that was interesting. That way I can avoid dying here. Because the Slowbro is going to go down to poison anyway. So if I could get even just rest, it would be good. But unfortunately, I get something pretty dang useless. And if I'd gotten rest there, I actually would have won. Because I think the Chloroblast, takes it out. Slowbro probably doesn't take me out. Oh well. Back with this guy with his Mega Heracross and Swampert with the Sap Sipper. The Swampert, which it should just be a Mega. I don't know why it's not. It maybe Mega Swampert is banned. I don't know. There you go. Come on, Mirb. Thank you for that boost. The having no weakness is another great way of mitigating risk. I got another little extra boost there. Nice. So this right foot is totally set up now, ready to sweep. Will that happen? Who knows? So because it's more or less just a coin flip, this tier, what you need to do is mitigate your risk. And once you do that, then you more or less get a better than 50% chance. Maybe you'll get some useful stuff. Maybe you'll get some really useless stuff. Like here, I got burned, so hopefully I get special attacks more so than physical attacks. Or Heal Bell or something. We'll see what we get. You could get a bunch of moves into ghost types. Ghost types is one of the best types you can have because there's so many normal type moves like Stomp, and there's a lot of fighting type moves, and especially High Jump Kick and Axe Kick, which really punish your opponent for getting them. So Ghost is the best typing in this for sure. Being able to avoid status is quite nice, which is why Purifying Salt is also a good ability to have. But I prefer the Good as Gold just because I would rather take a status than take stat drops. The stat drops will drop all of your stats, not just your attack, physical attack, or your speed in the case of paralysis. And we can see that there's all sorts of annoying things that can happen to you. The Good as Gold just avoids it, which is quite nice. Uh-oh. That's not the kind of curse you want to see. Did I lose or did I win? Earth Power. Oh, whew. I barely made it out. Oh, that's actually one of the scary parts about being a ghost type is when you get cursed like that. So one strategy I forgot to mention while I was talking about competitive and about Defiant is Contrary. Contrary is not a good strategy because even though that would help you avoid stat drops from your opponent as well as things like Draco Meteor, it would also mean that if you ever got a Victory Dance or anything else useful for you, you actually would get a stat drop instead, which is not really what you want to see. So, oh, thank goodness I got that into Keldeo. So I've seen people use Contrary in the past and it never works out well for them. So even though you would think Contrary would be a really good option, it is not a good option. I do not recommend it. Brine is such a sad move, It's like, okay, I've got this move, it's really weak, and it can be moderately stronger if your opponent is almost dead. But if my opponent's almost dead, I'm probably going to take him out in this turn anyway. So Brine is a move I wish they would just get rid of or rework to make it good. Ouch. Fickle Beam hurt. It's been unfortunate you can get moves like Upper Hand, Fake Out, and all these other things with Metronome. Also, can we just talk about this? Ouch. With Pokemon Showdown, you gotta use the brain. Also, Keldeo with Life Orb, that's not a good set, in my opinion. Look at this. Every time I click on this move Metronome, like this whole entire list shows up. I'm not sure. Does that show up in Hyper Voice? That didn't do anything. Okay, that's showing up. So like it pops up all the time, and wow, they changed me to grass and they changed me to water. It doesn't do anything. Like I don't need to know what moves it can't pull, so it's just in the way. Why does it keep popping up like that? Well, that's 2 ghost moves in a row. It's a good thing my opponent decided to go for Terra, because otherwise this would have all been super effective damage. And actually now that changing me to water really hurts them. Alright, comes down to this move here probably. Will they get off? Okay, no. They went for Draining Kiss and it didn't kill. And I went for Phantom Force. Actually, that might be it right there. That's crazy. Nice. So I don't think that Life Orb was particularly strong on Keldeo, because what you're doing is doing maybe a lot of damage, or maybe you're doing very little damage, and you're taking a lot of your own health for that. For example, if I use Peck, 30 base power, not stab, not going to do any damage, and yet I still have to take the Life Orb damage as a result. So Life Orb, not a good move in this, or not a good item in this. One item that actually does bear mentioning is Normalium Z. Normalium Z is sort of a good item in this, but only some of the time. You can use Normalium Z and to get whatever Z effect there is. For example, if it's a status move, you know, status Z moves usually come with an added effect. If it's Z Splash, then you get the +3 attack. If it's Z Follow Me, then I don't even remember what that is. Is it stat reset, something like that? A lot of them are actually stat reset, which is one of the reasons why that's not as good as you might think. Otherwise, in case you had a boosted stat and then you unfortunately reset it. But a lot of them are actually attacking moves, because you know you can pull all those attacking moves, and if you get that, then you actually just get a really strong Z move. And Normalium Z, not a bad option. I am in favor of using Normalium Z. I'm not using it on this set though today, because I don't think that it fits with the theme of risk mitigation. I think it's something that you do because it could work out for you and you could get something good going, but it's not necessarily a sure thing. Alright, so my right foot now has 3.5 special attack. So if I could get off a special attack, that'd be great. Fortunately, that whirlpool just ended, so that's good. And I got a roost, which I mean, I guess I'll take that. Ah, nice. Seed Flare. That was a very timely Seed Flare, because as we've seen, that Slowbro is very annoying, very tanky. And I'll take out the Slowbro, so now it's just down to me and Petulant. They got rid of my Magician, but I don't think that matters at this point, so I'll be okay with that. In fact, well, actually, no, that actually ended up working really badly for me. No. So if I get something that'll boost me, then of course Simple Beam is really good. But that didn't work out so well, because that would have been a lot stronger of an Air Slash if I had been at my +5 or plus whatever the heck it was, I forget. Wow, that did a lot of damage. We are running out of Metronomes though, so hopefully we get something going here. Especially because my opponent will have one more than I do. And I just gave him grassy terrain. So if I don't take him out here, it's looking bad. It's tea time. Well, I actually technically, I think, only take 25%. Yep, so if they kill themselves here, but they hurt themselves in confusion, so that's not going to do it. That's why you want to run those Lepa berries. So you know what they ought to do? I've been thinking about this. What they ought to do is they ought to make a bot that just plays this metagame, or multiple bots. You know, they don't necessarily have to be actually on the ladder, but it does take a while to find games some of the time in this meta, just because, you know, not many people are aware of it. I think if people were more aware, they might actually play it. You know, many people play Ranbats, and they're just there to kill time and press buttons, and this is the ultimate waste time, press buttons metagame. So if people were more aware of it, this is a problem I'm tormented. I think you could get something going. But be that as it may, since they're not aware, it can be actually sort of hard to find games. But there's no reason why I need to play anything. And like, I don't need to play a human in this metagame. That doesn't get me anything. So just put a couple of robots in there, you know, let them do all of the hard work of being on the ladder so that I can play them. I think that would be nice. But yeah, I like this metagame just because it's great to be able to click buttons. Lychee berry is an insane berry to have. I don't know what that gets you. Oh, is it it's harvest? Okay, no, that's not as insane as I was thinking. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool little tech there. Ouch. That's electric terrain boosted right there. So, you know, I'm sort of surprised. For some reason, I thought that the rising voltage did damage to both targets, like psychic terrain boosted expanding force does, but it does not. So it only attacks one. A bit of a shame, frankly. But like it ought to do damage to both of them. Got lucky there that I wasn't different gender. Ingrain is an annoying effect for your opponent to get because then they can live longer. But as long as I do enough damage quickly enough, then it's not really that big of a deal. And once again, not good as gold coming in clutch. At the end of the day, it just comes down to, am I going to get something useful? The lowered accuracy and the lowered speed. Oh, wow. Poison, Metronome, hard press, and they miss again, so that lowered accuracy really hurts them. So yeah. Like I was saying, fun metagame, just not enough people on it. Let me fight you with my legs. This is the only place I can use this particular Pokemon. It's sort of a fun one to use. But that'll be it for me today. I think I'm metronomed out. I'll catch you guys next time.